So thank you all for coming this morning. Welcome to the New Jersey Community Water Monitoring Roundtable. I'm Erin Strutz, and I am the coordinator of the New Jersey Watershed Watch Network, which is a program designed to facilitate community monitoring in New Jersey. The program is hosted through me at the Watershed Institute in partnership with the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. So we're going to start with some welcome comments from a few members from NJDEP, starting with Kati Angarone. Then we'll hear from Bruce Friedman and Debbie Kratzer, who is my New Jersey Watershed Watch Network counterpart. Then I will go over some of the new guidance that we have developed over the past year or two, just to share that with you and talk about updating CoOps going forward. And then I'll open it up for some Q&A. So any questions that you have, for the group or for the representatives from DEP, for me, for the network, that is your chance to share those and get some answers. Then we will hear from, I believe this is now 13 different groups. So the order is listed here. This is very slightly different from the order that was shared on the agenda that was in the calendar invitation and sent out. So for this, try to keep it to 5 to 7 minutes per person. As I mentioned, you can use PowerPoint or you can just talk about what's going on with your program. I'm recording this, so I will send this meeting out to all of the attendees, those who registered, and also those in the Watershed Watch Network who didn't register but would be interested in the content here. I'm also, since we do have kind of a time crunch, I'm also very willing to share out any other materials and resources that you have and that you'd like to share with the rest of the community. So we'll start. I'm going to toss it to Kati.
Good morning. Give me a second to share my screen. All right, hopefully you're seeing the right screen there. Good morning. Thanks, Erin. Good morning. It's an honor to be here with you this morning. My job here today, first and foremost, is to say thank you. Thank you for helping the DEP to protect our waterways through your stewardship. And thank you for helping us do what it is that we do. As I said, for over 20 years, the folks in this room have been helping DEP protect our waterways through stewardship. And over time, as a result of the dedicated folks at DEP and with strong partnerships with groups like the Watershed Institute and AmeriCorps, the program just keeps getting better and better. So I think it's appropriate for me to start here with sincere gratitude. We could not do this work as quickly or comprehensively without you. And at DEP, you may know that we like to solve problems. We are definitely an agency of problem solvers. It's one of the reasons I love working here. And the first step in problem solving is gathering the science. What do we already know? Among our 5 guiding principles at the department is to follow the science in all that we do. And I've got some great examples here on the screen of how we do that. As you can imagine, climate change is one of our highest priorities. It's here, it's real, and it's already impacting us all. Moreover, it is and will impact our vulnerable populations worse because these communities are already less resilient. So we've been acting to address climate change for a long time, but under Governor Murphy, we've been directed in various executive orders to take climate change on with a whole of government approach. So that meant we needed to get all the science in one place for all of government, for all of you. So we took the first steps when we released New Jersey's first ever scientific report on climate change in 2020. This is a long report. It's comprehensive, but the executive summary is an easy and enlightening read. I highly recommend that you take a look at it. It synthesizes the latest and most reliable scientific information on the current and predicted future impacts of climate change on the Garden State. This analysis, not unlike the rainfall studies, which is also shown in the map on the screen, which was released last year in partnership with the Northeast Regional Climate Center, provides us with the data we need to act to protect our communities from the impacts that are coming and to work to reduce those impacts by curbing our carbon habits. Both of these documents are available at the DEP's website, and in the case of the rainfall studies, there's a handy fact sheet that's also available. And the rainfall studies, by the way, confirm increases in precipitation across New Jersey over the last 20 years, and it projects further increases in precipitation intensity through the end of this century due to climate change. And last, but certainly not least, I'm sure all of you are familiar with the integrated report, which helps us understand the state of our waterways. In all three of these examples, the department is assuring that we have the best data possible to help inform policy. And I'm going to take you back to grade school for a second here with this little graphic. Remember this, the scientific method? It doesn't work without data. That's what's happening at the observation and the experiment steps. Data is everything, literally. It helps us understand the breadth of an emerging issue like PFAS. It makes it possible to assess the health of our environment through the work that you're doing. And getting data is the first step on the pathway to any solution. That's where you come in. It is so very impressive to me that AmeriCorps and the community water monitoring programs together contributed 50% of the biological data in the 2020 integrated report. That's half, 50%, that's very impressive. And that data is helping us characterize issues, prioritize, and ultimately find solutions. And let's be honest, we need some solutions at this point between climate change, PFAS, invasive species. These are all very daunting issues, and they are far too big for any one agency to handle. But this group right here, I find that you're the embodiment of an old adage, many hands make light work. And you'll hear from Bruce Friedman today about how the department uses community water monitoring program data. But what he will describe is really just the jumping off point. There's lots of other places this data comes into play. I know, another wheel, my apologies, but wheels are helpful. A while ago, the department reorganized to align our programs to foster better watershed management, to put land use regulations, stormwater, and the folks who do restoration all under one roof. But in truth, nearly every program in our agency has a role to play in watershed management somewhere on this wheel. And that makes watershed management what we call a networked program. And networked programs need a coordination plan to document function, cross connections, and evaluate gaps. So across various programs in water and watershed management, we are working to develop what we're calling a watershed coordinated plan. The plan is intended to keep us connected with within the department over time through administration changes, reorganizations, retirements, et cetera, you name it. And it's a lasting framework that keeps us all moving forward and optimizes the use of our data. And I have to tell you that the aha moments that we're witnessing as part of this planning is really rather energizing. We're finding ways to share and analyze and connect our data, your data, in so many ways beyond the way that we've traditionally done. For example, water monitoring data, as we all know, informs the integrated report and discharge permitting. Well, who else in the department can use that data? Do all the groups making restoration, mitigation, and land management decisions use it to prioritize where they fund projects? Not yet. Can we use it to understand which land use regulations are working to reduce non-point source pollution and to evaluate what we could do better to improve those regulations? These are the questions that we're asking as we're evaluating how we manage watersheds. The data collected in the Community Water Monitoring Program is spurring those questions, many of which will be answered with policy development. And that to me is very impactful stuff. It keeps me motivated, and I certainly hope it does the same for you. That leads me to my last point. And yes, there's another wheel now, I'm just messing with you. But it is applicable, I promise. Regarding watershed management, or really any environmental issue, we know we can't do it in a vacuum. It just won't succeed that way. So to improve our water quality through a changing climate, we need everyone on board. We need to connect to our communities. And there are so many ways that we can do that. Community or citizen science is just one way. And here's what makes community science unique. It builds knowledge on multiple levels. It builds our collective understanding, and therefore it drives sound policy. It also gives the citizen scientists and anyone they connect with a sense of stewardship that comes from interacting and learning the value of a resource. Last March, some of you may be aware that the Science Advisory Board issued their report on citizen science. And in it, they noted that the benefits of citizen science included the leveraging of agency resources through partnerships and increased scale and cost effectiveness of data collection, a myriad of ways to identify and address environmental science and health needs of all the state's residents, and enhanced community engagement, environmental literacy, and public support for our agency. So I'm proud to have citizen science coordinated through one of my programs, the Division of Science and Research, specifically through the efforts of Kati O'Neill, who I believe is here and many of you may know. And by the way, she's also the chair of the work group that authored the Science Advisory Report. But the report contains recommendations on how we can enhance and expand citizen science at the department. So through Heidi's leadership, the DEP Internal Citizen Science Work Group is making progress to implement those recommendations, including the development of a webpage to connect people with projects. I'm really excited about that. And by implementing those recommendations, we will expand our opportunities to do good community science, just like you're doing here. So I'll end where I began, with gratitude. Thank you for having me here today, and thank you for helping us to further our mission of protecting and improving New Jersey's waters.
Thank you so much, Kati. And now we're going to pass it to Bruce Friedman.
Thank you, Erin. I don't know if any of you know that there's a debate on Twitter whether there's more wheels or more doors. And I think that thanks to Kati, we all know the answer now, there's more wheels. So my kids told me about that the other night, but you can check it out, it's true.
Is that a Lego thing, Bruce? I have to ask.
Is that what?
Is that related to Legos? That feels like a Lego.
I don't know what it's related to. No, I think somebody just posted it and it took off, whether there's more wheels or doors. Awesome. I personally think there's more wheels, but now I know there's definitely more wheels. Good morning. I'm Bruce Friedman. I'm the director of New Jersey DEP's Division of Water Monitoring Standards and Pesticide Control. It's a pleasure to be here for the New Jersey Watershed Watch Network Community Water Monitoring Roundtable. Feels like spring. It's warmer weather out there, longer days, daylight savings. It makes me feel like going out and doing some kick netting. It's definitely the beginning of field season. It's around the corner, and that's good. First and foremost, I want to thank the Watershed Institute, specifically Erin Stretz, for all the work and support she provided as the New Jersey Watershed Watch Network Coordinator. I also want to thank Deborah Kratzer, NJDEP, for managing the community monitoring grant that helps support and grow community water monitoring in New Jersey, and her dedication in ensuring that data produced by community water monitoring networks is of the highest quality so it may be used in New Jersey's integrated report. The integrated report assesses water quality data to determine if those waters meet designated uses under the Clean Water Act. I'm excited to be here today because rarely do we get an opportunity to see the culmination of a plan. NJDEP always had a community water monitoring program, but the loss of some staff, it needed an infusion and a new direction. Trish Ingalito, who was in charge of the stewardship program in the Bureau of Environmental Analysis, Restoration and Standards at the time, along with Kim Seno and me, came up with an idea of partnering with an outside group to foster and develop the New Jersey Community Water Monitoring Program. So we put our vision in a request for proposals and waited to see who applied for the grant funding. The Watershed Institute took our vision and ran with it. Using the funding provided through the 319H program over the last few years, the Watershed Institute used their expertise to develop the New Jersey Watershed Watch Network to train, support, and grow community water monitoring in New Jersey. We've worked together to develop technical resources needed to collect high quality data. This includes creating data quality tiers and study designs, so you better understand what you're trying to accomplish, the intended use of the data, and to ensure that the data produced meets those needs. Understanding when a community water monitoring program needs a quality assurance project plan, developing CoOp templates, data sheets, sampling methods, macroinvertebrate identification, and biological indices for high gradient streams, coastal plain, and pinelands. Last is dealing with the data. You must be able to manage the data, analyze and visualize the data, and of course, share the data. But why do we need community monitoring and citizen science? There are so many pros and so few cons. Connecting people to the water, understanding watersheds, fostering stewardship, and environmental awareness. But there's also the data. There are 19,425 river miles in New Jersey, and there's 47,620 acres of lakes, ponds, and reservoirs. DEP can't monitor them all. If you look at the assessment of designated uses in the most recent integrated report, 14% of New Jersey's HUC 14s cannot be assessed for aquatic life designated use because of insufficient data. 24% of New Jersey's HUC 14s cannot be assessed for aquatic life trout due to insufficient data. 15% cannot be assessed for water supply designated use. 25% of New Jersey's HUC 14s cannot be assessed for primary recreation due to insufficient data. And 63% of New Jersey's HUC 14s cannot be assessed for fish consumption designated use, also because of insufficient data. That is a lot of data gaps. And because of those data gaps, we don't have a clear picture of the health of New Jersey's waters, whether they're safe for swimming, whether the fish are safe to eat. These data gaps also prevent us from fully assessing whether these waters qualify for C1 protections, which help further prevent degradation of our highest quality waters. By furthering citizen science and community monitoring, the department can fill data gaps and free up resources. Volunteer water monitoring and citizen science build community awareness of pollution problems, help identify and restore problem sites, become advocates for their watersheds, and increase the amount of needed water quality information available. So I just want to thank everybody here today, and I look forward to learning more about each program represented. So thank you very much, and thank you, Erin, for inviting me to be part of this.
Thank you, Bruce. It's so good to hear you and Katie speak about community monitoring in this way, because you know, it's kind of a new start to our relationship, and to hear you say, I don't see any downside to community monitoring. And that's really heartening on our side of the equation, just to know that what we're doing is considered valuable and that we're putting in the work to get it to DEP to be used. That's so critical. So next, we are going to hear from Debbie Kratzer.
Hi, welcome everybody today. Thank you, Katie and Bruce, especially for the support to grow the community water monitoring program over the past few years, and to work together to increase the quality and the quantity, and fill in those data gaps in water quality data, and then to use it for science-based decisions. So I think this restoration grant, this partnership has been really great to provide the more training resources and technical assistance to the groups, and to increase the communication between DEP and all of you that are actually out there in the field doing the monitoring. And thank you for being here today at the Roundtable. And I look forward to working collaboratively. We have, I think we've made great strides in the past few years, and I hope that that we'll continue to address, all the challenges that are still in front of us to do even better for the environment and the people of New Jersey. And we are in the process of updating our DEP community water monitoring page. Many of you have contributed some descriptions of your programs that will be on the page. So look forward to that soon. And those of you who have quality assurance project plans that are approved already, there's 4 groups with approved CoOps, and we will be scheduling your audits soon. And anybody who, as you're learning more, you want to increase your quality and develop a quality assurance project plan, just reach out and we will provide your assistance. And so I look forward to hearing from everyone at the meeting today. So I'll pass it over to you, Erin, and I really appreciate the work that you've been doing too. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. You're my counterpart. You're my girl. We do it together.
Yep.
All right, so I'm going to go back to sharing my presentation. Here we go. So what I'm going to do is review the new Tier 3 guidance for habitat and biological assessments in New Jersey. This was developed over the past year to 2 years, kind of standardizing the expectations for data that's collected, that's submitted under this Tier 3 category. But first, what do I mean by Tier 3? So New Jersey operates under a 3-tiered system for community water monitoring. This 3-tiered system is commonly used by other states as well. So Tier 1 is for educational type monitoring. You really don't need any substantial quality assurance behind it. It's just really to get people out there and monitoring. Tier 2 is data that's collected under a quality assurance project plan or CoOp, but does not include like the approved methods from the Office of Quality Assurance, or doesn't take those extra steps to ensure the quality of the data. I'm not saying that Tier 2 data is less important than Tier 3. It's really important to clarify that because Tier 3 data, we need to go through specific requirements to get that data to a point where it is able to be defended in court, essentially. So regulatory data is used for integrated report assessments, Category 1, designation, TMDL development. These are all of the kind of options for regulatory data. But producing regulatory data has some requirements in itself. So we need complete data documentation. There can be no question as to how some piece of data is collected or how that data is managed or analyzed later on. We have to have complete transparency and quality assurance to make sure at every step of the process, from the volunteers to your program staff working on it, to data submission, that we're checking and double checking our work to make sure that it's accurate. And of course, like I mentioned, sometimes producing regulatory data requires that we have to defend the legitimacy of it. So when we redesignate an area as Category 1, for example, there are going to be some people in the state in that area who are not so pleased with that, because that means that they can are not able to develop as close into the riparian zone, as close to the stream as they might like. So having really high quality data is really, really important, whether that data is coming from the New Jersey DEP or from community water monitoring groups. So just because I like tiers, and 3 of them, we've also broken the macroinvertebrate and habitat assessments into 3 tiers as well. So tier 3.1, all of these are under that regulatory tier, by the way, tier 3. But tier 3.1 is the type of macroinvertebrate monitoring that is typically performed by the AmeriCorps Watershed Ambassador Program. So it's stream-side ID by the volunteers, and we're staying kind of at the order family level. There's a list of 22 order family taxa that are on our standardized data sheet for the state. Tier 3.2 takes it a step up from that, where we preserve our macroinvertebrate samples in the field, but we bring them back to a lab or classroom or somewhere for the volunteers to identify those preserved samples to the family level. So we still have volunteer identification, but we kind of take it a little bit a step further. Tier 3.3 is probably the easiest kind of monitoring for volunteers to take on because it removes the macroinvertebrate identification aspect, but it's also the priciest because these preserved samples are sent out to an approved lab. That lab will identify the samples to the lowest practicable taxa, which is typically genus or species, but higher for worms and leeches commonly. So I'd like to talk about revisiting for those of you who have quality assurance project plans on file with DEP, or for those of you who are just kind of getting into this whole thing and wondering, what do we even need to include in our program to submit a CoOp at Tier 3 requirements? First of all, CoOps should be reviewed and resubmitted to the department every 3 years. It's also just a good opportunity for you to kind of reevaluate what you said that you're doing in the field and to make sure that that is accurate, to make sure the data is being collected as we are saying that it is. But there are a few new additions to CoOps that we are requiring for Tier 3 monitoring going forward. The first is field accreditations. Second, we're requiring macroinvertebrate identification testing by volunteers. And this is only if your volunteers are doing the identification, of course, at Tier 3.1 or 3.2. If you're sending your samples out to a lab, that step is not required. 3, we're asking that groups conduct duplicate sampling at 10% of their sites. 4, 5% of your sites are subject to field audit by NJDEP. And 5, the data should be submitted to the EPA's Water Quality Exchange to share out with DEP. So I'm going to go into each of these categories here. So for field accreditations, this is a step that's required for each individual volunteer who's collecting Tier 3 data. So every person needs to go through this step. It has to be completed prior to the data being collected, and then again every 3 years. So we'll keep a record of all of the individual volunteers that have gone through this process and have been approved for field accreditation, and then we'll check back in after 3 years have elapsed to make sure that they can re-up for the next 3 years. At a minimum, the field assessment should include the EPA Rapid Bioassessment Protocol. This is a look at one page of this data sheet. It's the 10 questions that you grade on a scale from 0 to 20 on 10 habitat parameters. This is important because it kind of standardizes the way that all of us are assessing our habitat condition and habitat quality across the state. The New Jersey Watershed Watch Network has also created a separate data sheet that you can opt to use. It includes the EPA Rapid Bioassessment Protocol as like an addendum sheet, but it has a front and back sheet as well to kind of standardize the other pieces of information we might collect. This is the top of that sheet. Common parameters like weather conditions and some physical parameters, wetted width, depth, velocity, and it gets into some more information further down that data sheet and on the back. It's not required to use this particular data sheet, but it is an option for you if you would like to adopt it into your program. And you can feel free to take this and adapt it to your particular use. If you don't like the way like a particular question is worded, please feel free to change it for your own use. So for scheduling field accreditations, it's a little bit different for smaller groups versus larger groups. If you're a smaller group and you have maybe 5 people who are hitting 5 locations, let's say, you could gather those 5 people at one spot and conduct a real data collection in the field And Debbie or I will be there just to kind of watch and make corrections if we see anything that kind of is off our checklist. For larger groups, and this picture is from the Raritan Headwaters Field Accreditation back last spring. For larger groups like this, it might be easier to kind of make it a field accreditation day and bring together 10 to 40 of your volunteers all at once. You can see that we've had 7 different sampling kits for volunteers to use at this particular accreditation. So each of these volunteer groups can get out, do their assessment under the watchful eye of Debbie and I, and then you can kind of knock out more accreditations at a single time. For the larger groups, we can schedule 2 to 3 sessions per day if you have so many volunteers that is needed. I would say that each field accreditation takes anywhere from 2 hours for groups that are preserving and sending samples out, up to 3 or 4 hours for groups that are doing the identifications in the field. So there's a link at the bottom of this slide. I'm going to send this out to you. I don't expect you to be jotting down MTG31BXH, but you can visit that link. It's a Google form to sign up for a field accreditation. You can say how many volunteers you have and throw out some dates, and then Debbie and I will chat and get back to you to schedule an official accreditation. Macroinvertebrate testing is also required for those performing Tier 3.1 assessments. To be frank, Tier 3.2 is only done by the Watershed Institute, so I haven't included that here. But there's 2 different options for volunteers to get tested on their identification ability. The first is through us, through the New Jersey Watershed Watch Network itself. We can communicate, schedule a time for this test. The test will include 50 preserved organisms, and it's from that list of 22 taxa, a mix of order and family. It's open book, open key, open phone if you have ID apps, or you can head to macroinvertebrates.org on your phone. It's open everything, because that's what you have available to you when you're actually out doing the identifications in the field or in a lab. The only thing that we ask during these tests is that individuals don't talk to each other. So it has to be kind of a solo mission, but the world is available to you beyond that. Of the 50 organisms, we need a 90% to pass. So that's 45 correct identifications out of 50. And that's free for any groups who have a CoOp. This is something that we'll offer. We just need to reach out and get them scheduled. And there is another option, though, if you want to take the next step. The Stroud Water Research Center has partnered with the Society for Freshwater Science to administer macroinvertebrate identification testing at the family level. And they also have tests at the genus level for eastern seaboard mayflies, stoneflies, caddisflies versus western seaboard. They have a number of other tests. But for our purposes for community water monitoring, it's more likely that we'll use the family level taxa test. This is an online test. They include 40 digital images, also open book, open everything. This test requires a 95% to pass, and there is a fee associated with that. But the Stroud test is valid for, I believe, up to 5 years rather than 3 years. So, depending on what your volunteers are doing or what your personal goals are, if you want to become, officially a family level taxa identifier, you can go through Stroud, or you can come through the Watershed Watch Network. So there's some additional QA measures being implemented at the Tier 3 level. One of those is to perform duplicate sampling at 10% of your monitoring sites per year. So what does that mean? A duplicate sample is with the same group of individuals at the same stream on the same day at the same time. you collect your samples for macroinvertebrates. You go through, you do your 10 to 20 kicks or nets through your 100-meter stretch of stream. And then you bring it together. If you're tier 3.1, you would identify that group. If you're tier 3.2 or 3.3, you preserve that sample. And then you head out and you do it all over again. So it is a little bit extra effort on the volunteers' behalf to go through and conduct a whole second macroinvertebrate sample. But it does help to kind of prove to DEP and to anyone who's using this data that the volunteers are collecting the samples in a standardized way and that it's replicable in the future. The habitat assessment is one that just is done once, but it's the macroinvertebrate collection and preservation or identification in the field that should be done twice. And this is just at 10% of the monitoring sites per year. You can choose which sites get that duplicate treatment. And just in case anyone wants to get into the weeds here, if you're already submitting your data to WQX, the way that you would document this, you're still submitting your duplicate samples to WQX, but you would indicate in the activity type code that it's a QC sample, a blind duplicate. The DEP R scripts, when they pull the data from the water quality portal, which is where WQX data ends up, they pull it from the portal and the R scripts will kind of skip over any samples that are labeled as a QC sample or duplicate. But the data will be available to DEP to evaluate later on, or just to provide that proof if there are any issues later in the future. The last thing is that NJDEP will reserve the right to conduct field audits at 5% of your sites every year. So there's really nothing that you need to actively do to receive the field audit treatment. DEP will reach out to you when you kind of come up on the list to receive a field audit. They'll reach out to you to schedule that audit. And Debbie Kratzer will be the one to conduct those field audits. And here's a look, of course, at Musconetcong Watershed Association's field accreditation last year. So with the Water Quality Exchange, this is the new required way that we get our data to DEP. I wanted to mention that WQDE, the Water Quality Data Exchange that DEP created for themselves, is being phased out. And they are also switching to WQX to submit their own data to the Water Quality Portal. So this applies to habitat or physical data, to water chemistry, or to macroinvertebrate counts, as well as the scores. So you would submit your individual bug taxa and counts, and then you would submit through a separate form that analyzed data, that assessed data into what the final score was, what your index score was for habitat and for macroinvertebrates. And this is a look at the data schema that WQX uses. You kind of start by submitting your organization information, and then you submit information about your individual projects. So you may have a project where it's just baseline monitoring, you're utilizing the help of volunteers. That could be one project. You may have a separate project that's focused on pre and post dam removal monitoring, or another project answering different scientific questions. Each of those would have its own entry. And so the locations and the activities that you submit where you're actually collecting the data at these sites has to be kind of nestled under one of these different types of projects. So if you are starting with WQX, there's no online form or anything to get started. It's kind of old-fashioned. You send an email to wqx@epa.gov with the following information. You send it to them, you say you want to get started with WQX, and then EPA's staff will reply to your email with further instructions. So at that point, that's when you can start to look into these different spreadsheets, to look into formatting your data, to submitting that information to WQX. So there's some upcoming deadlines for data inclusion in the next integrated report, which is the 2024 integrated report. Any data included in the 2024 report has to be collected by May 30th of this year, and it has to be uploaded to WQX by August 31st. So these are some important deadlines just to keep in mind. On our behalf, on the New Jersey Watershed Watch Network side, we're developing some tools, some submission instructions, some templates, things to be able to make this whole process simpler. So I already have some data from a few different groups, American Littoral Society, the Nature Conservancy, Rahway River Watershed Association, that we're trying to kind of mold into the very specific way that data has to be presented to be submitted to WQX. But I hope to share these materials more broadly over the next couple of months. And a quick mention about continuous data. So if continuous data is becoming much more common for us groups to be collecting continuous data, but there is no existing portal for us to submit that data for if we're a non-agency, non-academic group, we really don't have a place to put that data. So that data will be handled on a case-by-case basis. And to submit that data to DEP, you still have to be at that tier 3 level, which for water chemistry means that you have become certified with the DEP Office of Quality Assurance. That is another area that we're kind of looking into. We've worked on the habitat and macroinvertebrate data so far. That's kind of been our focus. But I hope to be able to switch that over to water chemistry, whether it's discrete samples or continuous data to help facilitate high quality data that's being submitted to DEP. Our New Jersey Watershed Watch Network is up and running and has been. You can find more information about these resources. Head to njwatershedwatch.org and go to the technical resources tab, click on habitat and macroinvertebrate assessments, and you can read through the full guidance document and also have links to the data sheets and different templates for you to adopt. So at this point, I would love to open this up. If anyone has any questions about that guidance that I just went through, or anything else that's on your mind, you can feel free to unmute yourself or type it into the chat box. And so I will leave that open for just a minute in case anyone does have any comments or questions.
Hey, Erin, can I just make a comment?
Of course, yeah.
I just wanted to point out that it appears like we're making groups jump through a lot of hoops, especially in tier 3.3, and I'm sure there's a level of frustration with some groups, having to go that extra mile. But when we use the data for the integrated report, we're making policy decisions, we're making decisions on C1 designations, and oftentimes we get pushback as part of that rule. We're being sued right now or challenged right now on our last C1 rulemaking, and they're specifically challenging the validity of the data that we based our decisions on. So we really want to use the data. We need to use the data, as Kati and I had pointed out, but we also need to make sure that data will stand up to challenge by outside folks that aren't happy with necessarily with our rulemaking. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that was my, to be in honest, full transparency, I kind of had that initial reaction as well when we started talking about all of these new requirements. But ultimately, I think we're all after the same goal, which is to collect data of a known and sufficient quality to be available and up for scrutiny by whoever is looking at this data and maybe has a question about it. So our goal is to make the new requirements not so invasive on your own programs. You know, we don't want to step on anyone and say, this is how you need to be doing things. Of course, every group has their own specific goals that they're after. But yeah, we do have these.
Erin?
Yes.
Yeah, I appreciate Bruce's and your comments of the extra obstacles here. Having run macroinvertebrate studies in Monmouth County for Shark River, Category 1, and for Wreck Pond, we did quite a job, and that data was very, very helpful in like identifying some pollutant sources along the Wreck Pond waterway where people were dumping dyes from mulch and the macroinvertebrates were wiped out. Similarly, erosion in Category 1, Shark River. We identified that. It worked great. And we had very strong volunteers and Rutgers assistants in that Monmouth County program. I'm weighing if we should, I would like to re-up that program and get it going again, but I'm not sure if we could comply so well. There are a lot of hoops there. I'm going to study that, and thanks for that overview for the new program. It's not too much different with the EPA Rapid Assessment Program, which was definitely rapid and quick, easy, efficient. But these other things always seem a little more difficult when you first reveal them. But I think once you run through them a couple of times, it may be facilitated.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for those comments. And I would be happy to speak directly with you or to anyone who has more specific questions to be addressed in relation to your specific programs.
Okay, we'll follow
For
up.
some groups, you know, we hit the field accreditations and the macroinvertebrate identification in the same day. So it does seem like there's a long list of things, but we can try to make it as simple as possible for you. Any other comments, questions before we move on?
I have a question. How soon can you book to get like accredited for your organization?
Today. No, not today. I want to go outside and not work today, to be honest. It's going to be 70 degrees, y'all. Yeah. But yeah, so submit your information through that form. I think Debbie and I can be relatively nimble to respond to that and to be able to get out there and accredit your groups before you get out and actually collect data.
Okay, well, yeah, one of our streams is actually involved in a lawsuit right now. It's C1 and they're trying to push forced main through it. So we only have a CoOp for the YSI monitoring, but we don't have one for biological assessments. So kind of wanted to get on that.
Absolutely. And so we have established some CoOp templates. So it's relatively easy to kind of write up your own description of your own program, but to also pull some elements that are standardized across the state. So that's another thing we're hoping to make an easier lift. CoOps historically have been something that have scared people away. So, you know, we're hopefully taking out the fear of that somewhat.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask Kate, the YSI program that you got a CoOp for, previously we didn't use any multi-parameter probe CoOps. What equipment do you use and how does that work?
So we used to have our own that the DEP actually supplied to us. So this is going back, our organization's about 20 years old. So the DEP gave us one at the time they were supplying them. That got old and we had to retire it. So we now actually rent our meter on a quarterly basis from Pine Environmental, and then we pay them. It's an extra fee. I think it's $50 to make sure it's state certified. So the titration is done in a lab and approved by the state. And then we go out with we have a form which lists all of our locations, our test sites. Each meter is good for up to 10 testing sites. So we can do 10 tests and then we have to recalibrate. But we have 10 sites. We go out, we document it with a secondary person so that all the data is QC'd. And then we have about 20 years of that. So we do it 4 times a year seasonally.
Fantastic. Wow.
And we
Thanks for the tip.
Yeah, we use it as an education program for our community. we invite the public to come out. We'll bring 1 or 2 people with us just because some of them are roadside, so we don't bring too many people because it can be dangerous. But yeah, it's just a way to educate our community and get our MS4 points and stuff. So.
Yeah, I had spent $15,000 on state-of-the-art YSI, and then after 3-4 years, it rusted away, and I couldn't afford to get new sensors.
Yeah, there are. Try Pine Environmental. They've got a bunch of locations all over the state, and you can rent it. I want to say it's less than $300, maybe $150 per rental. And that's a one-day rental. So you just schedule it for a day. They'll drop it off to you and then come back and pick it up. It's really nice. Wow. Yeah, it's great. Yep. And they'll send you all the documentation for the lab certification so that your data is
legit. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's awesome. And we're going to get into all of your individual programs. We're going to open it up now to hear from you. First, there's one last question in the chat box. That's, what is a Category 1 designation? That's a great question. We keep saying Category 1, C1, what is this? So a Category 1 stream is one that has ecological significance or recreational significance or water supply significance that we've identified that we need to protect. So the best way really to protect water quality, the first step really, is to see what is already good and to make sure it stays that way. You know, once it starts to become degraded, that's when it's much more difficult to kind of pull it back from beyond the brink. So Bruce also included the official definition here, which is great. So C1 designations, these are the really good streams. And because of that, there are some additional protections placed on those streams with wider riparian buffers and things like that. Great. Okay, so we're going to shift over. I think Rachel from EPA, you are first on the list. And then after that, we've got Allison Brown on deck from Splash. So Rachel, I will pass it off to you.
Great, thank you. I'm just gonna share my screen real quick because I made a quick PowerPoint to go with this. Can you see that PowerPoint? Awesome. Thanks everybody. I'm excited to hear what you're all up to. And to piggyback after this YSI conversation, if you can afford that, that sounds like an amazing thing that everybody should do. If you need a multi-parameter sonde. If you have the money, that sounds like a fantastic program that takes a lot of burden off of you. So please run from Pine. But if you don't have the money, our equipment loan program is open. I released the RFA literally a week ago. So that request for applications will be open until April 10th. Also, we have a habit of extending it, but just keep April 10th in mind as the end date to this. Just a real quick introduction to those who are not already familiar with the program. The Region 2 Citizen Science Equipment Loan Program is open to all citizen scientists, community groups, NGOs, even given to universities and high schools in EPA Region 2. We do give priority to tribal nations because this is open to New York and New Jersey. Tribal nations, EJ communities, and new applicants. We do provide hands-on training, and the recipients are required to write a CoOp, or if they've already written a CoOp with us, they can just do an addendum. They have to provide regular updates. They have a monthly report form that I send through Google Forms, and produce a report, which could be of your choosing. A lot of folks just publish their results to Facebook monthly. That's all publicly available. You know, that's showing us what you did with your results. It doesn't have to be a full report. And then we have others that do already produce their own type of report cards or reports. But if you are part of this program, we could talk about these deliverables. The loans are short term. New York and New Jersey is usually May to December. And we also do this in the Caribbean because Region 2 includes Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. And there we do it on a rolling basis with in a different way. But this is just a slide I use all the time. So we have available a YSI multi-parameter sonde. We have the Pro Plus currently. This will probably be our last year with the Pro Plus, so we're going to be upgrading to the Pro DSS. But for now, we still use the Pro Plus. We do the initial calibration for you, so it's ready to go. We also teach you how to calibrate it, because while you have it, you will have to calibrate it yourself. We provide data sheets to help you do that and instructions. We also have a few Garmin's available. I know that phones have come a very, very long way, and not a lot of people use these anymore, but we do have them. Also, our sonde does not do turbidity, so we have a turbidity tube if you need to do turbidity. When we upgrade to the Pro DSS, that will do turbidity and have GPS in it. So there's a lot of reasons for upgrading, but this will be the last year. I think that this is what we provide for the field. We also provide laboratory equipment. This is for pathogen monitoring. So it can do E. coli, Enterococcus, and, oh my God, I'm blanking, total coliforms. So we train you how to do this. You just need some space. We've had folks do it in a garage. You just need to have a little space. The biggest piece of equipment is a incubator and the IDEX sealing tray. If you have questions about any of this, of course, you can contact me. We also have a manta trawl for microplastic collection. Now, this does require a boat, like an 18-footer or larger. And we do train you how to use this as well. We don't really train on beach sampling, but I do have protocols if anyone is curious and wants to do that on your own. I could provide that as well, just for doing your own microplastic sampling on the beach. We have 7 field sets, the YSI, the GPS, and the turbidity tube, and we have 5 lab sets. We have 1 manta trawl, but if I have an increase in interest, we could look into buying another one. Consumables are not included. No gloves, no calibration fluids. Like you'd have to buy the IDEX trays, and we can talk about this. I do have a list of estimates, cost estimates. It can be cost prohibitive for some. If this is something you're interested in, we've had groups hear about this one year, apply for grants, and then apply for the equipment next year. So there's different ways of doing it. We are looking into very soon having purple air sensors available for air sampling. I know that's not really applicable to this group, but I'm just throwing it out there. And DEP currently has HAP sensors that actually are like a sub equipment loan from us. And I know some of you might have those and are using them right now. Just a quick, the required documents, like I said, we do require a CoOp. We can talk about the needs of a group after you apply. We do require a loan agreement, monthly updates, the data when you're done, and a final report. And again, we can talk about all the deliverables. If you're interested, please reach out. This is just a quick list of the recipients from New Jersey in previous years. We've had quite a few, and New York as well. And then also, if you are not already aware of it, we do have a citizen science bulletin that I send out about monthly, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on what's available. I have just webinars, trainings, and conferences as I hear about them. Opportunities such as funding, employment, internships, volunteering. I think the last one I sent out had Clean Ocean Actions, cleanup is coming up. This, I guess it's in April. And then resources, articles, guidances, educational tools, online courses. So if you're interested in stuff like this, just shoot me an email. And also I could provide the link to the RFA for the equipment loan program to Erin. She can send it out to everybody. So that is just my quick hello and plug for the program. So I'm excited to hear what you're all up to. Thank you.
I love you, Rachel. Thank you. And I'm happy to share that equipment loan information out with everyone. I just popped in the comments in case anyone was wondering about the extra costs for the IDEX pathogen monitoring system. I estimate about $800 for the consumables for 200 or so tests that would be ordered directly from IDEX. So that just gives you an idea of how much to budget there if you are interested.
And if you just need a YSI, that is significantly less to cover, you know, the calibration standards.
Definitely.
Yeah. And we always provide you with the first set anyway when we train you. So thanks.
Oh, that's good to know. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so next up is Allison Brown from the Splash Floating Classroom. Do we have?
Greetings.
Oh, hi. Yes.
Thank you for your presentation. It's very informative. I'm really proud to be part of this program. And I'm going to share some slides with you. So we have been working with the CAT team since, I guess, March. Since March 2021. Seems like a long time ago. And we're Splash Floating Classroom. We're a nonprofit located in Lambertville, New Jersey, whose main mission is to educate the public about our local watershed and increase stewardship. And that is where we are now. We really are pleased to have our participants become better acquainted with the home, our watershed. And I want to show you our sites. We have 4 sites that we're monitoring using the Watershed Institute's Lamont kits. And I just want to give you a sort of overview. I'm going to the Watershed Institute report card, so you see where we're located. So here we are in Lambertville. This is the Huck 13 sub-watershed and Huck 14 sub-watershed with Alexacan Creek and then Swan Creek in Huck 13. And so we are monitoring these sites every 3rd weekend of each month, and lots of changes have occurred. I'm going to mention briefly about the impact of Hurricane Ida on Lambertville. I'm sure everyone has heard that we were severely impacted. So what you're seeing now are the sites from where we originally established them in 2021. We have 2 trained citizen scientists at each site. And so I'm just going to introduce you to them. We have Susan Goldfarb, Christoph Spath at the Alexacan 1 site. And here's Amanda Wygand, and she is a watershed ambassador for Region 11, and her fellow watershed ambassadors are here with her that particular day. We also have another, we have another volunteer named Kat Walker, who's also part of the monitoring of this site. And this is Sue Wydick and Audrey Burns at Swan Creek. And Sue's actually been with our program since 2018. She's my sister-in-law, and I'm going to mention her in a minute about her work right now with the Lower Delaware Wild and Scenic Group. And then finally, last but not least, we have Ed Zygon and Eric Clark, our director of Splash, at the dock site on the Delaware River. So there's been some changes, and here you see the impacts of Hurricane Ida on Swan Creek, denuded of vegetation, lots of trees down. That completely has altered and the character has changed significantly. We see also Alexacan Creek Site 1, post Ida. The creek margins were breached by the Alexacan Creek waters that came flooding through, the field there, and really was one of the main sources of impact in our town, the northern end of Lambertville. So we're no longer using that, monitoring that particular site because it's inaccessible now. We moved our Alexacan Creek site to an area just to the east of the aqueduct on Alexacan Creek. And this is what it looks like too, also impacted by the storm. They started monitoring that last, I guess in November, we moved the site to that location. Lastly, I wanted to point out that we're in the news. We have a National Park Service, and I just want to show you this newsletter they call the currents, river currents. So we have a little bit on our citizen science program with the Watershed Institute. And as I say, we're really, really excited about being part of this program. I also wanted to show you that we recently received, actually Sue Wydick, I mentioned, recently received a mini grant. Sue is a volunteer with our community tree program. I'm trying to think of the name of it, Shade Tree Commission. And she secured funds to improve our watershed areas impacted by the storm, and has call it the riparian trees for Lambertville. So we're really excited about this upcoming Arbor Day. We invite you and anyone else interested to come out and install trees, primarily in areas that were impacted by the flood. So that's my story. Thank you so much. Any questions? I'm here for a few more minutes, and I got to head off to work, change my hat.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Allison. So she was referring to CAT, which is the Watershed Institute's Streamwatch program chemical action team. So we've been partnering with Allison and with Splash to collect water chemistry data in Lambertville. And it's been lovely. Thank you, Allison.
Thank you.
So we are going to switch over to Clean Ocean Action. Now we have Kati Mitchell and Allison Jones from Clean Ocean Action. So I invite you to share your screen. Let's see if I can.
Hello.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys. Just getting the presentation pulled up.
Good morning, everyone.
Hey, Allison.
I don't have permission to share my screen.
Let me see if I can.
I was still up. So long, everyone.
I'm
sorry, I have to go to work now. Thank you.
All right. See if you can give it another go, Kati.
There we go. All right. All right, can everyone see my screen? Then I'll get started. Thank you so much for having us today. My name is Kati Mitchell and I work with Clean Ocean Action. I'll let my colleague introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Allison Jones. I know I've met quite a number of you at past roundtables. I'm the Watershed Program Coordinator for Clean Ocean Action.
All right, and I'm probably a newer face. I joined community as the Community Science Associate for Clean Ocean Action this past summer. So today, Allison and I will walk through some of our current water quality monitoring programs. So to start off, over the winter, we launched a road salt monitoring program in the Two Rivers watershed. We are a community partner under New Jersey Watershed Watch's road salt impact study this year, which is part of a larger national study through the Isaac Walton League of America. We're monitoring for chloride levels in local waterways to try to get some much needed data on how excess road salt application is impacting freshwater and brackish systems. We're focused on the two rivers, which are the Navesink River and the Shrewsbury in Monmouth County. Road salt has been a pretty persistent issue, negatively impacting particularly freshwater ecosystems. It's usually generated by de-icing application to public roads, surfaces, and walkways, and often enters our waterways through runoff. Fish and other wildlife are generally negatively impacted by the sudden influx of salt. It can also work its way into our drinking water, impacting our tap water and corroding pipes. So for the program this year, we're building off of some initial studies that we did in 2020 and 2021 to try and expand a bit and partner with more members of our community. We recruited a variety of community members through a lot of different outreach tools, reaching out on social media to local monitoring groups, trying to get a good representation of community members to participate in our study. We had them monitoring under ambient or dry conditions and also monitoring storm events. This is building off of the study that we did in 2021. This year, we tried to get a better picture of the impact of storms. So we had extended monitoring before and after a storm. We did 1 pre-storm monitoring and then 2 post-storm monitoring events with all of our volunteers to try to get a little bit better picture of how that salt influx is affecting waterways around storm events in particular. And the program this year is running from January to April. We had 10 monitoring locations planned this year, ended up reducing that to 9. One of our locations was unfortunately not safely accessible. We had 4 volunteer teams monitoring those locations. 2 volunteers were assigned to each group. You can see on the map on the right here an overview of our monitoring locations. In the bottom left corner, we have sites 1, 2, and 3, which was monitored by 1 team. Sites 4 and 5, which are site 5 is right in the middle of the map, and site 4 is at the top of the map. Those are monitored by another volunteer team. Site 7, we had 1 team monitoring just 1 site. And then our final sites, sites 8, 9, and 10, we had a volunteer monitoring, and those are right along Route 36 towards the bottom right of the map. We were able to partner with some local water quality monitoring groups, in particular Oceanport Water Watch. Some of their volunteers worked within our monitoring program, and we're hoping to build off the momentum from this program to launch some of these volunteers into our other monitoring programs happening throughout 2022, which Allison will go into more detail about on the next few slides.
Thanks, Katie. And I just want to highlight that, as Katie mentioned, she joined the Clean Ocean Action team back in June, and running the road salt program was her first foray into working with our community science volunteers, and she did an awesome job. And now we've got a ton more coming up. So looking ahead, the road salt, we were really excited to be able to get that program going because it was kind of really our first full launch back into community science monitoring since everything came to a screeching halt in March of 2020. So that was kind of, dipping our toes back in the water, so to speak. And then we've got a lot more coming up, starting now, essentially. So these are mainly connected to our Rally for the Waterways programs. This is Clean Ocean Action's model that we developed initially with our Rally for the Navigation program that we use to help reduce pollution, mainly pathogen pollution, through source track down. And the slogan that we use for those programs is find it, fix it, no blame game. So we were very excited to bring that model to the Toms River watershed under our Rally for Barnegat Bay program, which is actually funded through a 319H grant from NJDEP. We are a little over a year into that project. It's a 3-year project with 2 partners, Save Barnegat Bay and the Marine Academy of Technology and Environmental Science, which is a VOTEC school in Ocean County. So we're partnering with them to do source track down in the Toms River watershed for pathogen pollution. And we've done a lot of monitoring ourselves, and we brought the pollution sniffing dogs back to New Jersey, for those of you who have heard us talk about that in the past. So we've done a lot of monitoring ourselves, but starting this month, we are getting our community science piece of that program up and running. So we've already conducted one training with our community scientists on a very cold and wet day last week. You can see that picture there. And then that program is going to be monthly bacteria monitoring from April through October at 27 locations throughout the Toms River watershed. Monthly ambient sampling, and then we're also hoping to capture 3 additional wet weather events with those community science monitors. So we've got some hardy volunteers that are willing to brave some tough field conditions as part of that program. So that's the big thing coming up in the Toms River. And then our Rally for 2 Rivers programs looking ahead for the rest of the year. Right now, our big focus, and we actually just launched it this week with Katie's awesome help, is our 2 Rivers water quality reporting form. We, I think, launched that last year, mainly because we were not able to do any official water quality monitoring. So we developed an online form just using Google Forms to enable concerned citizens to be able to report any water quality issues to us, which was especially helpful because we had the 2 Rivers experienced a very large menhaden die-off last spring. So we had reports coming in from community scientists, which was great. This year, we were able to adapt that form to Survey 123, which made it accessible and just a lot easier to work with for more people. You can use the app with Survey 123. So we just launched that new version this week, and we are trying to get the word out about that so that if we do have a menhaden die-off again this spring, which we're right around that time of year when it could happen again, we're ready to go and we have this form accessible to people. And then our main thing that we're hoping to do is get our pathogen monitoring back up in the Navesink and Shrewsbury with really hyper focus on those last remaining areas that we're considering hotspots for bacteria monitoring so that we can find and fix those sources and help improve water quality in the 2 Rivers. So that's what we have going on. Thanks for the opportunity to share. Oh yeah, and there's our contact info if you want to reach out, and our awesome road salt volunteers also braving some chilly field conditions.
Yes, and I also want to give a quick shout out to our upcoming beach sweeps on April 9th. I know they were mentioned in one of the earlier presentations, but we're going to have, I think, over 70 locations this year, and the registration is live and open on our website. So if you'd like to participate in a beach cleanup or share that across your networks, that'll be the morning of Saturday, April 9th.
Good call. Thanks, Katie. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
And waves of thanks to you both as well. Clean Ocean Action has really taken the road salt impact study that we've been doing with the Isaac Walton League and just taken it to the next level. So I really appreciate you guys committing to that and really going for it. I hope we can gather some really interesting data. So next we will switch over to Carolyn Klauba from the Sauerland Conservancy, and then on deck after that we've got Crafts Creek Spring Hill Brook with Kate Talon. Carolyn?
Slideshow. Here we go. All right. Well, first, I just want to say thank you so much for putting this together, Erin and Debbie. This has been awesome. I really enjoyed learning from everybody. So my name is Carolyn Klauba, and I'm the Stewardship Director for the Sauerland Conservancy. For those of you that don't know where the Sauerlands is, it's in central New Jersey. And it's the largest contiguous forest in central New Jersey, and it spans Mercer County, Somerset County, and Hunterdon County. So the Sauerlands is losing about 1 million ash trees. I mean, right now, if you go out and you look, you can just see tons and tons of dead trees. And so there's a lot of questions as how is this going to impact our water quality? And our stream monitoring program started in 2018, which is right around when the emerald ash borers started coming to this area. So we do have a little bit of data from our streams from prior to the emerald ash borer invasion. But that's a big question for us, is what's going to be happening here. So we have been working with Erin a lot over the last few years, developing our stream monitoring program. And last year our CoOp was approved. Thank you for your help, and Debbie for your help on working on that CoOp. And so what we're going to be doing is a 2-part program for our stream monitoring program. So the first step is a spring taster, and it's a water monitoring workshop that we work with our watershed ambassadors. We every year pair up with the watershed ambassadors that are in our region, which is WMA 8, 10, and 11. And so we work with them, and we do a short little workshop. It's 2-part. The first part is just a little lecture that the watershed ambassador will give, and then we do an in-person hands-on workshop. And this is just a real citizen science level. And it's just to raise public awareness. It's very family friendly. You know, there's always kids coming out, and it kind of gets people connected to their water sources. And it also really is a chance for people that are interested to ask specific questions. But it's a really fun weekend, and we always have a great turnout. And then our second portion is Stream School. And this is something that we had tried to do right before the pandemic, and that kind of squashed everything down, but we are back on track this year. And so this is a really intensive training and testing program. It's basically what Erin was going through earlier about the accreditation program. So it is a 3 days of lecture, and then 2 in person, 1 for training and then 1 for an accreditation testing. And our people that go through that program are going to be called Sauerland Stream Stewards, just to change their category from just a stream monitor to an accredited certified person. And so that accreditation is going to be a yearly recertification process, and the data that they can collect is the tier 3 through our CoOp, and we're going to be submitting it through the Water Quality Exchange Network. After Sauerland Stream Stewards go to Stream School, they're going to be collecting independently, well, in pairs, but without you know, a watershed ambassador being there. And so what we're really going to be looking at as water quality across land use histories. We have a couple of different restoration sites that we've done with the Roots for Rivers funding. And so we're going to be looking at those sites, what the water quality is there. And all of those sites are all post-ag soils. And then so we're going to have some comparative sites where it is historically forested at least till 1930, from 1930 aerial imagery, and looking at the comparison between those sites, and then trying to have a better understanding of what is going on in our water sources. And we're going to be doing riparian and biological assessments in those collections. And then this year, we're also partnering with Raritan Valley Community College, Dr. Emily Standier and her students, and they're going to be doing chemical assessments. So we're going to get a really nice snapshot of the habitat, the biological community, and the chemical components of the water, and have a much better understanding, because a lot of the streams in the Sauerlands are not being monitored, and there's 17 headwaters in the Sauerlands, and they flow out to the Raritan and Delaware, and it provides millions and millions of people with drinking water, and we have no idea what's happening. So we're trying. And in the fall, once we finish collecting all of our data, we're going to be giving a public presentation on the findings from this year's data. So for us, teamwork makes the dream work. We're all about partnering all the time. So we've been working, like I said, with the Watershed Institute since 2018. And this program has been really great with engaging the public and all the different municipalities in the Sauerlands. There's 7 municipalities. A lot of our our volunteers are local residents and they're really invested in their water quality. So that's been really great. We've worked with schools and colleges and universities, just connecting students and working with professors. And also with other organizations such as the Watershed Institute, because when we're working together, we can achieve our goals faster and in a, you know, in a more beneficial way to everybody. So again, raising awareness and collecting high quality data that's going to keep our water clean and safe. So just wanted to say thank you for everybody that's been part of this program with us. And if you have questions or if you want to learn how we work with our watershed ambassadors, they've been a great resource. And every year you get new watershed ambassadors. And so again, it just builds this real sense of community between the organizations, not just the people that come to the program. So thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. I love the idea of the taster. I think that is absolutely critical when we're asking volunteers to go through 5 sessions of training and testing and all of these things before they even start collecting data. So giving them that taste test is a good way to like see how much they would like to commit to the project, because it's not insubstantial.
No, it's a big commitment. And some people, they come to that taster and like, this is all I want. And other people, they're like, I need the big deal. I want that Big Mac sandwich. Give it to me now. So it's great. And, you know, then it's the investment return on our part is that we don't want to spend all this time and resources training you to the volunteer being like, you know what, this is way more than I wanted to. So we find that the people that do that are 100% in.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you, Carolyn, and good to see you, and we'll see you soon in May. So we're switching over to Kate Talon from Crafts Creek, Spring Hill Brook Watershed Association.
Hi there. So I kind of gave you guys a little idea of what we do. We're a very small organization. We don't have a lot of funding at all. So our program runs us about $600 a year, and that's pretty much all we can afford because we are membership based. But our data is really important to us and the local issues that we face. So our program, even though it's small, it's pretty powerful, and we do use it for education for our community. Basically what we do, we don't have the habitat assessment qualified for actual data usage like in court battles, but our YSI metered monitoring, we have about 20 years worth of data throughout 10 points in our watershed. We actually started with eight locations, but we just recently upped it to 10 to include a section of Blacks Creek and the Assaskunk because the amount of development going into those 2 areas, we realized that we should really, nobody was monitoring it on a local level. So we added that in. But we do rent the meter on a quarterly basis. So we take readings for each season and we invite the community to join us. That way we can do some education. And we go out to the same locations. We do take photographs, which we then upload to our Facebook site to show everyone exactly what the habitat at each stream location looks like. And we keep those photographs in our online storage as documentation that we did visit those sites for each season. Because we do want to use this data for activities and potentially in lawsuits, Bordentown Township is using some of our data in a lawsuit right now. We do pay the extra amount to Pine Environmental, where we rent our meters from, to have it lab certified to make sure that the calibrations are accurate. We did do the calibrations before ourselves, but it was very time consuming, and we only have one science officer qualified to do that. So it was just getting to be a bit much for him. So Pine does offer that service, which is excellent. Yeah, but in a nutshell, that's all it is. We do the macroinvertebrate scans with our organization. However, because we're not qualified, only a few of us have been actually trained on how to do that through the DEP and the Stroud Institute and Watershed Institute. We just don't have enough resources to handle that at this point in time. We are picking up membership, so hopefully that's something we're looking to do this year. especially being on the Delaware River between Bordentown and Florence and Burlington. With all the development, we're seeing a massive shift in what our waterways look like. So we feel that it's really critical that we jump on that bandwagon and include the habitat assessment and the biological monitoring into our quality plan. So that's it. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Kate. You guys, your budget is small, but you do a lot with it. And that's so important, is to recognize your resource constraints and to work with them.
As long as we're educating new people every time, we feel like we're reaching more people. So we're not going to stop.
Yeah. And hey, when you guys are ready to hop back into the bugs, we're here whenever you like.
Thank you.
So we will switch over to the Musconetcong Watershed Association. We have Sam Johnson and Krista Reeves.
All right, let me find the presentation mode here. Oh. All right. So I'm Krista Reeves. I'm with the Musconetcong Watershed Association. I'm the Water Quality Program Coordinator here. I'm here today with my field specialist, Sam Johnson. She'll kick in here at the later part of the presentation. So just to give you an overview, we're in the New Jersey Highlands in the northwest part of the state. Our citizen science group called River Watchers is in its 15th year. We have 7 steady sites that we've been doing that for that long, but we've added many sites along the way with the addition of several programs, one of which being our harmful algal bloom program, which we just kicked off last year with a small grant from the Watershed Institute. We were able to expand our capacity and purchase 4 of the meters, have some time to develop the materials, and get some training going. This was watershed wide. This enabled us also to develop partnerships with the Lake Apacong Foundation and several other smaller organizations in our area. As NJDEP said earlier in the presentation, they only have so much capacity to monitor so much. And so you can get those citizen science groups out there and monitor, a large portion of a waterway that NJDEP just cannot physically do. And so we were able to give this great presentation on HABs, get them trained up on the meters, and get them out there monitoring. So if we look at the numbers, we had over 50 volunteers get trained. They dedicated themselves over 4 months of monitoring 27 sites. We took over 555 samples. We had over 400 volunteer hours logged. And out of all those samples that were taken, we found 160 criteria exceedances and reported those to DEP through their Report a HAB system. And then also we're able to build a website off of that on our own website to help also direct people to DEP's website so that, people can understand and know what's in their waterway before they want to go and recreate in that waterway. So this was a very successful model that we used. And previous to this, we'd, not really done like wide scale monitoring over long periods of time, but it was so successful. We then took that model of like regional monitoring because the Musconetcong is so long, it's 42 miles long. So really thinking, strategically to have people not too far from their monitoring sites. We took that model and were able to do that with our road salt monitoring, which Sam will talk about in a little bit. Another thing we've been up to here is microbial source tracking. What we've been doing is monitoring certain sections of the river using qPCR technology to find out not only how much bacteria is in the river, but be able to find the source of that so that we can then start, implementing best management practices to be able to curtail that input of bacteria. Because even though the Musconetcong has pretty outstanding water quality, we do have a bacteria problem, just like most of rural, areas that are still mostly on septic and even some cesspools still here in the area. So we did find that human is one of our main contributors. And so, that's kind of like our next push as an organization is to look into how to manage that septic problem that we have. We do have a couple of proposals in right now to expand this microbial source tracking into the upper and lower portions of the river. And on top of this, we're going to be applying for a couple of grants, smaller grants, to be able to purchase our own IDEX so that we can then take that to the citizen science level, because this is broad scale when you're doing microbial source tracking. It's very expensive. So, you might have a site that's a couple of miles from your next site. So if you show, high inputs in one area, you need to be able to take that down to a smaller level to be able to start to figure out where your sources are coming from. Also, of course, we do our macroinvertebrates, as Erin's photo showed earlier in the presentation. She's come out and done that audit, and we'll be doing that again this year, getting a CoOp up and running so that we can get that data into WQX. We've been doing that the longest out of all of our programs. It's one of our most well-attended trainings. People love to come out and play with the bugs in spring, and we just added a fall collection last year. So we do a spring and fall collection now. We do the trainings and the habitat assessment trainings twice a year now. We have our trainings coming up the first weekend in April. So I can send along any information if you know of anybody that's up in this area who would like to participate in our trainings. They can come to those. And along with that, they get a pretty in-depth look at a new invasive species, aquatic invasive species that we have here in the lower section of the river, which is the New Zealand mud snail. This is a little nuisance snail that likes to clone itself. So far, we haven't found any limiting factors other than depth and flow regime. They don't really like high flow, but they don't have any natural predators in the area. And so that definitely, has exploded its populations. We don't know the dynamics yet between that and some of the other similar functional feeding groups, such as water pennies. But we are closely tracking all those sites that we do have confirmed sightings of the NZMs in. And, if any of you would like to come up and get an education on NZMs, you're more than welcome to come attend our training. We go in depth, you get hands-on look at them. You get to go out in the field and look at them because they are so tiny. They're very easy to spread. We've also started putting up decontamination stations at all of our access points along the river to help stop that spread. And if you would like any guidance materials or signage that you can post in your areas to help with even other aquatic decontamination procedures, we'll be happy to provide that as well. Another thing that we've been looking into, since we've been doing a lot of dam removals on the Musconetcong, is the return of the American shad and doing a lot of fish assemblage work. And we even had a volunteer effort last year. We had groups go out and see if they could spot these very visible bait balls. Since they're a river herring, they make these very visible schools in the water, because we know the adults have returned to the area, but we don't know if they're actually reproducing and creating young of the year to go back out into the Delaware and then down on out to the river or out to the sea. But that's what we aim to, try and figure out. This year, we're also going to be expanding into eDNA. That's a slide, I'm getting ahead of myself there. But we'll be using eDNA along with taking electroshocking and just visible bait ball kind of sightings from volunteers. We're also heavily involved in the Enviro DIY sensor stations that Stroud is engineering and building. We have 6 at present on the river, the main stem and tributaries, and we are also getting ready to install 2 more on the main stem. Up one to monitor a dam removal up at Beatty's Mill in Hackettstown, and the other near the confluence with the Delaware, so that we can get a better picture of our water quality leaving the river. And this is mostly intern and volunteer maintained and driven. What we do is, I've been trained by Stroud. I'm one of their research technicians in the area. So I can put them together and, get all the technical stuff set up, and we'll go out and with a crew Volunteers will install them and give them a little workshop. We call it technology and water quality. And then, you know, it's up to them in the local areas to help maintain these sensors, you know, report issues. Since they're live, you can look at the data online and, you know, you can tell if there's problems going on. And we also use these with our road salt study, which Sam will be touching on in just a minute, because they take conductivity, temperature, depth, and on some of the stations, they take turbidity data every 5 minutes and upload it to the website. And so, like I had mentioned, we'll be getting into eDNA, or environmental DNA collections, this year through our U.S. Fish and Wildlife Cooperative Agreement. And, you know, just through COVID and high water situations, we really haven't been able to get the fish data that we really want as part of our dam removal monitoring. And so I think not just me, but many others in the field, while they were sitting at home twiddling their thumbs, thought to themselves, well, how can I still monitor, right? And eDNA has become a little cheaper and a little more available over the last few years. And so we're going to be able to get fish assemblage data, either presence and absence of the American shad, and then hopefully the young of the year American shad later in the season. And this can also be used for early detection of invasive species such as snakeheads and the New Zealand mud snail, like I had mentioned. So I'm going to go ahead and at this point turn it over to Sam Johnson, my field specialist, and let her take it away.
Hi, everybody. So we launched our road salt monitoring project this season, and I've been reporting our data to the New Jersey Watershed Watch Network. Thank you, Erin, for all your help with it so far. We have selected 24 sites based on our areas of concern, proximity to continuous monitoring stations, and the input of our volunteers. We found success by asking our volunteers for their input per sites, because once they had more ownership of the project, they were more willing to participate. And despite the cold and wintry conditions they had to brave into to collect samples, we still had a large amount of turnout from volunteers, our river watchers, because of how concerned they were for the excessive dumping of salt that we have on our roads. And we are able to expand our reach in the entire watershed by dividing the watershed into 5 different regions. Each region is comprised of a team of volunteers who, as a whole, have collected over 230 readings so far. And from this, we are going to be able to create rating curves between conductivity and chloride to identify sites of concern. And we're looking forward to doing this as the winter season comes to a close. So next, I'm going to talk about our data studio project. This is a data sharing tool that we've been working on for all of our organization's monitoring sites. And the purpose is to make viewing data accessible and digestible to the general public. And through a map on our website, you'll be able to click on a certain site and click to be able to view more data, which will take you to a landing page that looks like this. And it'll give an overview of the site, just basic information, as well as all of the data parameters that are available. And you'll be able to click on an icon for more information, such as phosphorus, for example. And it'll take you to this page, which is connected to a data sheet that we have that we can edit in a separate sheet. And our goal through providing all these parameters is to provide clear data and information so that citizens can learn something new and stay informed about the water quality in their community. So we're still working to get this up and running, but we're looking forward to having an Earth Day launch this year.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. This is our contact information here. And like I said, we do have a training first weekend of April. Just go ahead and shoot me an email if you'd like to be part of that. Thank you very much, Erin.
Whew, you guys are doing a lot. Okay, I have so many questions, but we have to move on in interest of time. I just want to say that the New Jersey Water Monitoring Council meeting on May 25th, the focus of that is going to be about eDNA and potential applications.
Yeah, I was very excited to see that because it's really like hot right now, and there's a lot of organizations really getting in on this. So yeah.
So I'll see if I can get the clearance to send out the information for that meeting so that more of you guys can attend if you're interested. Learn more. Yeah. Awesome. You guys are doing great. So we're going to switch over to the Watershed Institute. So I will pass it off to Gian Smith.
Hello, thank you, Erin. My name is Gian, and I am fairly new. So Erin, feel free to correct me if I say anything wrong. So Streamwatch has 3 branches of volunteer water quality monitoring. As you've heard, the CATS team, the chemical action team. We also have a biological action team and a bacterial action team. And this is actually a really big year for us because we are celebrating, our 30th anniversary. Our chemical action team was actually started in 1992. So we're celebrating 30 years, and along with that comes a lot of upgrades to the program. So in this past year, we've made some recent changes to both our bacterial action team and our biological action team. So our bacterial action team monitors water bodies, streams and lakes for harmful algal blooms, as well as E. coli and just total coliforms over 3 5-week sampling periods over the summer. They do a visual assessment for the HABs, and then they will collect water samples for in-house nutrient analysis and bacteria analysis using the IDEX. We have interns that help us out in the lab, and those HAB occurrences are reported to the DEP. New this year, we are the first affiliates in New Jersey and the first new affiliates of 2022 to join a program called Swim Guide, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a moment. But the biological action team upgrades happened last year. We have switched from, so we have offered our volunteers the option to either be a tier 3.2, where they're doing their all the testing and field assessment and identifying the organisms themselves, versus just going out and doing the field work, and then we'll send the samples out to an external lab for more in-depth identification. We also adopted the EPA Rapid Bioassessment Protocol, and we're using that data sheet that Erin showed. So we started implementing that in the fall, and we're doing it on a rotating basis so that volunteers who are identifying only do that once a year and only have to do the testing and accreditation once a year. So yeah, so we've just started that, and we're still testing it out, but see how that goes. So Swim Guide is a nonprofit based in Canada under Swim Drink Fish. And it's an app as well as a website that shares water quality data for recreational uses. So they're mostly focused on beaches, swimming areas, but it gives us an opportunity to publish more broadly some of our bacterial data, interpreted bacterial data. So we're not giving them the raw data, but just like, yes, it's safe to go here. No, it's safe, not safe to go here. So as I said, we are the first new affiliates of 2022 for Swim Guide, and the only ones in New Jersey right now, but I encourage you all to check it out and maybe add your data. And finally, we do have some exciting things coming up. We are upgrading our CAT program to start using the digital meters that everybody's been talking about. So we're still working on like the logistics and planning all of that, but we're going to ask our volunteers to use the digital meters and monitor or take measurements at several sites, as well as grabbing some water samples for us to do, again, the in-house nutrient and bacterial analysis. And the logistics of this are a little bit tricky, as you all know, with the calibration and the hold times and all of that. We're still working all of that out and working with our volunteers to see what will work best for them. But yeah, so those are all upcoming, and it's a lot. And finally, we have a Streamwatch Schools program and data platform, which we are hoping to launch this year. We're partnering with both Stroud and a company called Limnotech on this web-based platform. that is based on the Monitor My Watershed data platform that is used by EnviroDIY as well as LeafPack. And so we're building up a StreamWatch specific version of that to be hosted on our website, which will allow for online data entry, visualization, analysis, and hopefully sharing more broadly. We're hoping to beta test the platform itself over the spring and summer. And then in, I believe it's late July, but I'm not exactly sure, we're hoping to invite some teachers over to learn about the platform, start to put together some lesson plans and curricula. And then we're hoping to pilot this program with schools themselves and students in the 2022-2023 academic year. And so this data is going to be probably more of a tier 1 educational purpose data, but the platform will also host our regular tier 3 StreamWatch data. But with the schools, we want to emphasize the interconnectedness of their watersheds and bring in schools that are within the same watershed. So that's what we're working on. We've got a lot of stuff, a lot of irons in the fire. And I think that's all I have.
Awesome. Thank you, Gian. And I just want to mention to build off of what you were saying, that data platform we're working on with Stroud for the like Monitor My Watershed, the platform. Once we have that completed for the StreamWatch program at the Watershed Institute, the next step is to kind of build that capacity so that other groups can create their own logins and their own sort of like, you know, bespoke pages that they can log into, have their volunteers enter their data, and then have that one place to have our data.
Yeah, that's absolutely the idea.
Yeah, so you know, us first, we're putting on the oxygen mask first, and then we'll assess the other people in the cabin.
We'll try it out, get out all the kinks as much as we can, and then we'll share it out.
Thank you. And welcome to the club. It's been lovely.
It's nice to meet all of you.
So next up, we have Rahway River Watershed Association. But I am thinking that Clea is not present. So we will go ahead and skip over Rahway and head right into the Shark River Cleanup Coalition. So we have Arlene and Bill to talk about what you've been up to. Hey, Bill.
Hi, Erin. Wow, great session. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm coming up to speed on the whole teams here. I currently serve in my day job as with Rutgers University as an agriculture and natural resource agent. And I have focused over the last 20 years or more on Monmouth County, because that's where I live, in terms of natural resources and environmental systems. I teach environmental issues on campus. The Shark River Cleanup Coalition, which I'm a technical advisor and executive board member, has had a long and winding road. In the late 90s, I was involved with the early formation group, getting activists and all the mayors from Belmar, Avon, Neptune City, Neptune, and Wall together around our Shark River Bay and the contributing streams and stormwater runoff situation. And from there, we realized, oh boy, we have a bigger problem than we thought, and we have a stronger team than we thought. So we started and revamped to the Shark River Cleanup Coalition rather than just a roundtable, focusing on the incredible amount of trash, sort of mimicking the Clean Ocean Action beach cleanups. We did bay cleanups and also extended to Belmar Beach. And then, because this is affecting our economic development of all our tourist communities, fishing, swimming, drinking water. And we followed all these routes upstream. We had a lot of great groups help us out. Turner Shell from the DEP was a leader early on. And then Tom Kellers, our environmental specialist from Monmouth County, helped us connect with Monmouth University, John Tieneman, Brookdale University environmental groups, Clean Ocean Action, American Littoral Society. And so we have had quite an array of training and projects, whether it's macroinvertebrates, bacterial source tracking, dredging, and living shorelines. I was interested in the recent comments about antibiotic bacterial source tracking, because initially we used antibiotic testing to differentiate between human E. coli, equine E. coli, avian E. coli, dogs, mammals. And later on, I'm going to pick up with Christina and Gian about this new system that's simpler, because I went for qPCR training and that literally is over my head for 3 days. Wow, my assistants were going, we cannot do this and it's too expensive, but this IVEX thing seems like it might be a solution. I'm glad to hear new developments. We have used, though, certified labs for our Enterococcus and E. coli work, and that Shark River Cleanup Coalition has a membership of 400 to 600 people up and down over the years. So they have contributed funds for us to do that. Nonetheless, our sources of funding have gone down and down. So we had DEP come and join us at the Shark River Yacht Club. They sent their whole team there. We needed to revamp in 2019 and just get a better trajectory to be even more efficient than we had been. Previously, we got $7.1 million to dredge this system over 2 grants. And right now on the board, we have a $1 million grant for a living shoreline in combination with Neptune Municipality. We're just awaiting U.S. Army final permits. But this water monitoring has always been the key to our success. We inform the swimmers, the boaters. All our clam beds are polluted and cannot be used. We would like to bring that back. And part of the project might be an oyster reef for removing the bacteria there, as well as some of the ribbed mussels that we see might work even better, so people won't harvest these mussels, which are inedible. So anyway, we hit the pandemic, and that really messed us up. We didn't want to deal with volunteers. They didn't want to deal with us. We just had a lot of Zoom meetings. And I think finally, we're reaching the end of the tunnel. We need to get stronger, retrained, reinvigorated, and just when we had an agreement with DEP that we could send our samples down to Leeds Point with Eric first, we've done a lot of training. All of a sudden, Eric's gone. A lot of their staff is gone. So we got to find new ways beyond our certified lab to deal with that analysis. Because that's one of our, we have a CoOp. We have a Category 1 stream in Shark River. We'd like to expand that Category 1 stream because there's massive new warehouse development and housing development that threaten the other tributaries in there. And I need a definition. We need a definition of how far you can extend that Category 1 protection. We have a great system, great people. So we're coming up to speed, and I'll leave it to our secretary, Arlene, who coordinates most of the activities nowadays, especially when our president, Jim McNamara, is in Puerto Rico right now. He loves the surf down there. So Arlene, I'll turn it over to you for a status update of where the Citizen Science Project.
Sure. So we did learn about, we had met with former Assemblyman Eric Kotelling about, how we can get financing so we wouldn't be spending so much money on the water testing. And plus we needed to have a really good legal basis, as you indicated, going into any type of lawsuits, that the data is valid. So he had first pointed us in the direction of the Urban Institute at Monmouth University, and we were going to work with them. But again, to the pandemic, that kind of fell through. And then we had learned, we had seen about the Watershed Institute, and we sent two or three of our representatives out there, and they came back very excited about the Citizen Science Project. And so they volunteered to be working on this project and get it up and going. And that's Carrie Cruz and Joel Bernstein, who are not here today. And working with them, and this has just been developing really over the past year. We were able to take an old CoOp and have it revised and rewritten and submitted. We had been working with InfoAge in Wall Township. We use space there for our storage space and office space there. So we were able to have a lab set up over at the InfoAge site. We provided, the funding for setting up the citizen science supplies and materials. And that was in December. There was a training with the DEP of the volunteers, and they have just started taking the samples and getting the program underway. And that's kind of where we're at right now. So we're just entering this new phase of the water monitoring programs and are very excited about it. And that's kind of where we're at right now. One question I have as I'm listening is that we also partner with the Littoral Society with their horseshoe crab tagging. And this past cycle last year, there was a very huge death, there was a lot of dead horseshoe crabs, like more than we've ever seen before, like strewn all across the side of the river. And I just was wondering, is there any tracking that's done of that type of species to see if there could be something that could be contaminating the water that would be affecting, their life? Any idea on that, Erin, if that's
That's a great question. And Debbie, hop in here if you know anything different. I'm not aware of any specific horseshoe crab kind of monitoring program apart from what you guys are already doing with tagging.
Okay.
I would suggest for something like that to use the Warn DEP, either app or phone number to report something like that. And then the information will get to the appropriate person or bureau in DEP that could follow up.
Yeah, because I was just wondering this year if we should then see if there's another occurrence, what type of data we should collect in order to report that, So maybe it would be a good time with the tagging season coming up in another 2 months to try to reach out and try to find out, if this is a problem, how do we report it?
Yeah, and I can ask and find out, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay.
Cool. Well, yeah, thanks, Debbie, for looking into that. And thank you, Arlene and Belle. It's nice to have Shark River Cleanup Coalition on board.
Yeah, we're very excited to be here. So
yeah.
And thanks for everything today. It's been very informative. We've appreciated listening to everyone else's successes and, what's been going on. And they're great models to follow.
There's a lot of diverse work going on in this state. I think this whole session is really highlighting that. We're all super busy.
Oh, yeah.
And Allison Jones just popped some information about horseshoe crab monitoring in the chat.
And we also have 8 bald eagles on Shark River Bay, nesting in Neptune City, Bradley Beach, Wall Township. The population's expanding and they feed on the fish that come in that bay. And we had a few Manhattan kills. We got to clean up this area. It's a little bad, but the monitoring is the first step, always has been. We need bacterial tracking and evaluation upstream and in the bay.
Absolutely. And just a quick question over to Krista, actually, about bacteria monitoring. Where do you guys do your qPCR testing for?
Partner with Montclair State University, Dr. Wu's program. We've been like the subcontractor to that award for those non-point source proposals. And so we do a lot of the field work in partnership with them, and then they run the qPCR.
Got it.
What organisms does it differentiate between, Chris?
It all depends on what you want to look for. So in this more rural area, we look for cow, deer, goose, the human signal. You can look for dog. We have an area in Hackettstown where we're specifically looking for dog markers, but you can look for anything that they have a marker for. All you have to do is build a bioassay, and all that requires is a sample. So if you can go and take a sample of it, they can build a bioassay for it.
Yeah, at the time PCR did not have equine. I think they were just starting with bovine, and now they have cow. Previously, we had dog, and when I was sampling for dog, we had a cat problem all around the area, feral cats.
Yeah, feral cats. People don't realize the problems that feral cats can pose, not just on birds, but you know, scat and all kinds of other issues. But yeah, so you know, as long as you can get a sample of it, they can make a bioassay for it.
What was the name of the professor at Montclair?
Dr. Wu, W-U.
Okay.
Yeah, Sam's going to put it in the chat right now.
Thanks so much.
You got it.
Awesome, thank you. So now we are switching over to Raritan Headwaters Association with Emily.
Hi, thanks for having me here. My name is Emily Mayer. I'm the new watershed scientist at Raritan Headwaters, overseeing our stream monitoring program. The organization currently monitors over 70 different sites in all 52 HUC 14 sub-watersheds throughout the northern and southern branch of the Raritan River. The 470 square mile watershed includes 38 municipalities within Somerset, Hunterdon, and Morris counties. We also work in partnership with Raritan Valley Community College with Dr. Emily Standard and her students, doing some continuous chemical monitoring bi-weekly throughout the year. We have some very highly trained, dedicated citizen scientists who trek out into the snow to do some of that monitoring all throughout December and January and so on and so forth. We also do some impaired site monitoring as well. In a couple weeks, Raritan Headwaters will be actually deploying 5 Enviro DIY climate monitoring stations as part of our new program called the Raritan Headwaters Centennial Climate Station Project. So we're hoping to get those launched in a couple of weeks. And so with this project, you know, kind of echoing both Kati and Bruce's messaging from earlier, this project will help us to fill in some of those data gaps regarding climate change trends within our watershed. And this summer, we're also hoping to implement some aquatic.
Emily, I think we've lost you. If you can hear us, blink once. Okay, I don't know. All right. Well, I think let's give Emily a chance to maybe log off and come back in. But in the meantime, just in the interest of time, we can hop to the next person. So we've got, oh, Emily, are you good? All right. So we last heard you, oh, you need to unmute, I think. You're installing aquatic.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So we are actually planning on hosting an aquatic invasive species identification workshop, as well as doing a lake science presentations for our volunteers and citizen scientists this summer. And it was great meeting you all, and thanks so much.
Thank you, Emily. Emily is another new addition to the team over at Raritan Headwaters, so welcome. It's very nice to have you. And it seems a few different people are working with Emily Stander at RVCC. I believe she's also open to partnering with other organizations, anyone who can get their samples over to Raritan Valley Community College. She is another great resource to connect with. So the next group on the list is Independent Seaport Museum with Alexis Cabrera, but I think that we can continue to move on here. Kira Malone and Michelle de Blasio are from the Nature Conservancy. And so I will pass it off to you.
Hello, let me just get my screen shared here.
I'm sorry I didn't give you the warning. Be on deck.
All right, can you see my screen here?
Yeah.
Perfect. Oh, hi everyone. I'm Kara Malone. I'm within the New Jersey chapter of the Nature Conservancy. Michelle, if you have anything you want to add at any point, just feel free to jump in, but I'm going to be talking about some of the water quality monitoring work we do in the Paulins Kill. So the Paulins Kill is up in northwestern New Jersey in Sussex and Warren counties. As you can see on the map there, that's the map of the watershed. And TNC's sort of main goal when it comes to water quality monitoring is to see how our restoration efforts have been impacted and hopefully, improved the water quality. So we've been collecting water quality data in the Paulins Kill since 2016. So we sort of have our baseline data that tells us what the water quality was like before our restoration efforts. And then of course, we continue to monitor the water quality to see if we can detect any changes. And we have sort of two major, categories of restoration work, dam removal and reforestation. So the upper left corner here shows the Columbia Dam being removed. That was removed in 2018, as I'm sure many of you are familiar with. And that was the first major dam removal project that we undertook on the Paulins Kill. In the next few years, we're planning on removing the Paulina Dam, which is in Blairstown. That's sort of the next obstacle on the river. You can see that on the map down there. And then also the County Line Dam in Stillwater. And then like I said, we've been collecting water quality data on the Paulins Kill since 2016. So that enables us to have a good sense of how the water quality changed, pre-dam removal conditions to post-dam removal conditions, because we do have that solid baseline data predating the major restoration project. And then we, continue to collect those data moving forward. The lower left corner there, that picture shows some of our tree plantings. And I actually specifically chose this picture because it really shows the intersection of those two sort of categories of restoration work. So what you're seeing are the trees that were planted in the former impoundment of the Columbia Dam. So that whole area was actually underwater for over 100 years. And after the dam was removed, TNC went in and planted, I believe it was 15,000 trees, maybe a little bit less than that in that particular site, to help stabilize the bank and provide some, habitat, and then eventually grow and hopefully shade out the river and reduce those water temperatures. Generally though, TNC has planted over 58,000 trees in the Paulins Kill watershed. And as you can see the map to the right, those yellow pentagons depict our water quality monitoring sites. And so, we're making sure that our reforestation and restoration efforts are occurring throughout the entire watershed and also those monitoring efforts as well. So we have a few different ways that we collect water quality data. So the bottom left photo there, it's kind of small, but those are the two continuous in-stream water quality loggers that we use, the HL4 HydroLab Sonde, which is the longer one you can see, and then the Onset HOBO dissolved oxygen and temperature meter. We currently have 11 sites along the Paulins Kill that we actively deploy these continuous in-stream water quality loggers. Each of those sites has one of those HOBO dissolved oxygen meters, and those are taking temperature and dissolved oxygen readings every 15 minutes. And then 4 sites, in addition to the HOBO, we co-locate one of the HL4 HydroLab Sondes. So those are taking the temperature and dissolved oxygen in addition to taking conductivity and turbidity. And we co-locate those 4 loggers at, with the HOBOs at the dam removal sites, because those are the sites that we're sort of particularly interested in the turbidity levels and how those change. So we have 2 of the sondes at the Columbia sites. One is upstream and one is downstream of where the former Columbia Dam was. And then we have 2 in Blairstown at the Paulina Dam site. One is upstream and the other is downstream of the current Paulina Dam. We also have 3 Enviro DIY stations, as you can see in that photo, as the same thing that Krista was talking about. And then additionally, we collect macroinvertebrate data and we conduct EPA habitat assessments throughout the Paulins Kill. We are currently working with a quantitative ecologist at Rutgers, and he's going through and actually analyzing our data going back to 2016. So hopefully, a future roundtable will have some results to report out on. And then lastly, I'm going to really quickly talk about some sort of exciting projects, an exciting project that we have coming up. So Krista already talked a little bit about eDNA, but we're going to be conducting some eDNA surveys in the Pollenskill in collaboration with NJDEP and Dr. Julie Lockwood's lab at Rutgers. So eDNA, or environmental DNA, as I'm sure many of us know, is just a survey method that allows us to detect like species-specific remnant genetic material that an organism has left behind, like in its environment. So we're going to be collecting water samples from the Pollenskill and sending them back to the lab to see if we can detect American shad DNA. So we know sort of anecdotally, a number of anglers have reported catching American shad at the base of the Paulina Dam, which is in the bottom right there. And that's the next major obstacle to migratory fish. And so using eDNA survey methods will help us sort of definitively prove that we have American shad that far upstream. And we're also hoping, and Krista kind of touched on this as well, that if we can get the timing right, we can hopefully demonstrate American shad spawning, and we can get a sense of how far upstream shad are spawning. So that's all I have today. So if anybody has any questions or wants to reach out, my email is here on the first slide. But yeah, thank you for having me. It's great to start putting names to faces and to hearing what everyone's up to. It's really cool.
Thank you so much to you and Michelle. You guys do great work in the Pollenskill, and that's another shout out for eDNA, which it seems to be overtaking the nation. So this Water Quality Monitoring Council meeting topic is really applicable for all of us. So I will definitely make a point to include that in some follow-up material. So I believe that concludes our sharing portion. Jessica, hello, just kidding. Jessica Bonamisa from the Interstate Environmental Commission is our last hearer of the day.
Yeah, right.
Sorry.
Hi.
I know. What am I doing? I'm so sorry.
All right, hang on. Let me share my screen. This one. Share. I will go really fast. So I'm Jessica. I'm from the Interstate Environmental Commission. We run a volunteer monitoring program, volunteer pathogen monitoring program. So I know a lot of you guys are doing eDNA. We do not do that. We just do pathogens. Oh dear. Are you gonna let me switch? There we go. Okay. So really fast, we are primarily a lab at IEC. So the purpose of our program is to facilitate volunteer groups who wish to monitor their waters but may not have the equipment or the lab space to do so. So we have a lab, we perform Enterococcus and fecal coliform analysis for free for our partnering groups. The only caveat is that it has to be in slightly saline waters. It has to be in brackish water because the regulations are such that Enterococcus is for salt water, and then E. coli becomes for fresh water, and we cannot analyze for E. coli. So that's the only caveat. But so we've been doing this seasonally since 2016 when we partnered with HEP. And this year we're going to be, our start date is June 2nd, I believe. As I said, we do fecal coliform and Enterococcus. We also have an equipment loan program where we loan out a YSI Pro DSS. So our groups, it's voluntary. They can do bacteria and a YSI, or they can just do the bacteria or just the YSI. We work with you on both ways. We also have a quality assurance plan. So every group that works with us, we train them, and so they can fall under our umbrella and be part of our quality assurance plan. It saves a lot of a lot of agony there. Each group fills out a 10-page addendum that can then be added on to our plan. So our volunteers take samples once a week, or it's really 5 times every 30 days. So for the most part, it's once a week, but if we can't hit that 30 days, it might be twice a week, but we shoot for once a week. And all samples are brought back to our lab, which is in Brooklyn, which I know is kind of far for a lot of you guys, but it's brought back to our lab. We analyze it. We are a NELAC certified lab. NELAC. We're a certified lab anyway. Cool. So that's the basic rundown of what our program is, really quick. So in 2022, we're growing a lot. The map shown here is for our 2021 sites, where we had 16. Now we're growing. As of right now, we have 21 sites. So it's going to be a lot. Our location is Brooklyn, like I said. In 2022, we're going to have a volunteer, not a volunteer, I'm sorry, an intern who we are paying, who's definitely not a volunteer. We're going to have an intern who is hopefully going to have some pickup sites along the way. So it should help a lot with groups that are farther afield. We haven't worked that out yet. We haven't hired our intern yet. We're still in the process of doing that. So that's kind of in the works. So we've also increased our capacity this year and last year. We have we've moved toward using IDEX instead of membrane filtration. We do still do membrane filtration for our fecal coliform. If you don't know the difference, membrane filtration is literally filtering the sample through a membrane and then seeing what grows on the membrane. Whereas IDEX is a little bit different and much faster and much less resource intensive. So that means that we can expand and grow more. For our groups, we do, you can do either or. We prefer you do the IDEX. If you've been working with us for a while, for example, Lower Raritan Watershed Partnership prefers membrane filtration, and we kind of grandfather them in that way. So we work. We also, this year, we might be working with Hudson River Park Trust in New York City, and they do IDEX and they want to do a comparison study. So we'll do membrane filtration for them. So we're a little bit flexible on that. But we very much prefer IDEX because it's much more efficient. And yeah, that's my really fast rundown of our program. If you have any questions or want to get in contact with me, my email is right there. We'd love to work with you. I know I don't know very much about Shark River, but your presentation, it sounds like you guys are looking for a lab. If you got brackish water, shoot me an email, and I would love to work with you.
1% salt.
So 1% salt. Let me figure out what our cutoff is, but shoot me an email. Let's see what we can do.
It changes.
Yeah. Okay. It's tidal. We might be able to do that. I can't give you any promises, but yeah, shoot me an email. We'll talk.
Okay. Thank you, Jessica. We'll do.
And this is the kind of thing we hope to see at the New Jersey Community Water Monitoring Roundtable. People identifying gaps and filling them right away. Boom, boom. I love it. So I set the end time somewhere between 12:15 and 12:30, and I think we are right at that halfway mark, which is nice. So thank you all so much for taking the time just to join in today and to share some details from your own program. When you have a new program, or even if you have an existing program, it is just so helpful to see and hear about what other people are doing to help kind of calibrate your own expectations and learn about new opportunities to grow and expand. So I wish you all a very happy spring sampling season. Anyone who is interested in talking about your CoOps, scheduling field accreditations, talking about macroinvertebrate ID testing, or scheduling a stream school training for a new habitat and biological monitoring program, please reach out. I'll follow this meeting up once the video is uploaded. It takes a couple of hours. I'll follow this up, shoot an email with this recorded video and with some of those helpful links as well. So thank you all so much. And I hope that you get outside and enjoy this beautiful day.
Thanks for organizing this, Erin.
Thanks, Krista.
Thank you, everyone who participated.
Thanks, guys.